I would just like to say good afternoon, everybody, on this, I'd like to say summer afternoon, but I don't know about wherever you guys are, but it's absolutely freezing in Blackpool. So good afternoon, and I hope you're all well and safe. It's really great to see you all here this afternoon. I'm really pleased to finally get the chance to be working alongside Vanessa, because we've probably again on Twitter and seeing each other virtually. Well, we still are now, but it's great. So just a couple of things to say. Oh, Jackie's saying it's cold in Luton as well. It's freezing. We will be recording this, so this will go onto the website. So for those of you who may want to look back on this, please do. If you have any questions at all, we've got the Zoom chat. Please put them in there, and I'm sure Vanessa will talk through about how she is going to progress this afternoon. It is for an hour and a half, and you will be also going into breakout rooms as well. So we are going to be youth workers, and we're going to be youth worked, which is great stuff. It is.
Oh, we've got a quiz and everything.
Oh, it's brilliant. Great. So again, I'll just be keeping a check out. If anybody does, if your internet goes down, please, try and get back in touch with me or with NYA, and I'll try and admit you again on the waiting room. I know a lot of people's internets are a little bit funny at the moment, but enjoy, have your brew, put yourselves onto mute, because and then we'll ask if you want to unmute yourself, and I'll pass you over to Vanessa. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you. Okay, hello everybody. I'm Vanessa Rogers. For those of you that don't know me, I was a youth service manager in Hertfordshire for about 10-15 years, but since then I train, I write, I still go back and do 3 months every year back in the field. So I suppose what I'm saying is my practice is up to date. Don't think I should be training other people if I haven't done it myself for a long time. I started out as a community artist and working in youth work, detached work. My main things are still detached work, but also girls' work. I'm really interested in relationships and sex education. So those, I suppose, although I do loads of the other stuff as well, those are my main things I keep returning to. What we're going to be talking about today, and it's a strange, time of day to be talking about it really with loads of people, is pornography. It's a big old subject. It's massive. So I've put together something that I hope is going to be really useful, but hopefully good fun as well this afternoon. And but there's a lot more to it. It's based on a lot of the research I did a couple of years ago. I bought out a book, or Jessica Kingsley Publishers published it, called We Need to Talk About Pornography. And it took me, I did probably 3 years research for that book beforehand. Did loads and loads of focus groups and getting young people involved in this about what they wanted to know, what they didn't want to know. And it probably took me 3 years before that to get anybody to publish it, because everybody was like, what? We can't have that. We can't be talking about that. Actually, you know what? We really need to. So without much more ado, I'll just set some ground rules, if that's okay with people. So I'm talking about pornography, and I'm not going to be showing you any. That's not, and nobody, as far as I'm concerned, you can talk about this loads, and you never need to be showing people pornography. Equally, I won't be asking anybody else about their viewing habits, because it's kind of beside the point. And on any contract or ground rules I do with young people, I usually make sure they know that too, so that we're talking about things rather than people's habits, because it's a bit more comfortable that way. We're likely to have different views on this, and that's fine. And if I can just ask people, we haven't got space here to have that debate, although I love having that debate. I'm happy to have it in another place, but just accept people's views and let's just leave it at that. If there is a problem or somebody needs challenging, then we can do that. But for the most part, if we can just accept people have different views on this, and to respect each other, where we come from on it. I'm going to try and get in on this as well, a quiz, and also I'm trying to get a breakout room so we can have a little bit of a chat as well. This is going to be recorded, as she said, so you can see all the stuff on there. If anybody wants to know more or is interested or has got any questions, just, email me afterwards is fine, or get in touch through Debbie is all good. Okay, I'm going to share my screen with you for the first time, and let's make sure everybody can see. Okay, everybody should be able to see that now. Yeah, good. Okay, so this is kind of what I'm going to be hoping to talk about today. Going to have a look at the ways young people are accessing and in some cases creating pornography, because it's not just about what they're watching. Maybe starting to have a look at how that can impact on young people's understanding expectations of sex and relationships. Big concerns about that, and obviously each one of these could be a big topic you might want to pick up with young people. Have a look at the age restrictions, make sure we're all clear on the laws and why they're there and those kind of things, and all the way through talking about how it is an emotive topic, but it can be talked about in ways that are fun, that are engaging, and that help young people make healthy choices. You know, it very much fits within that. Why we bring it up now before we even start? It's nothing new, and opinions vary on what's okay and what's not. And if you look there, I was delighted to find these postcards. It's from a book that was done from the BBC in the early days of television to show directors and camera crew the kind of shots they could take and the shots that they couldn't. And if you look here, it says too much bust is revealed in this shot. And as you can see by the shocked expression worn by the director, you know, now we wouldn't, and the stocking top, she's not permitted to adjust her stockings on TV. Now, nowadays we would think nothing of that. So, you know, we need to be aware that things change. In the UK, it's all regulated by age and the law is there to protect children and young people. So this is not about what I think. Why is it so topical at the moment? Well, because not only, you know, youth workers, who I think probably have been talking about this for some time, but we're all going to be talking about it. It goes on to the relationships and sex education curriculum, statutory, which is in most schools in England as from September. And I think it's really important that we've got it, you know, statutory curriculum, and it's a real opportunity to talk about the things that young people really need to know about. So not just about the relationships they have, intimate relationships, but all sorts of relationships, and in age-appropriate ways. So some of the stuff we're talking about here, it wouldn't really be appropriate to be talking to an 11-year-old, but it might be, depending on that 11-year-old, because we certainly know that some 11-year-olds are accessing inappropriate content. It's actually there under the online and media part of the RSE curriculum, about looking at the impact. And to be honest, we're probably not going to know what the impact is for another generation. But certainly talking about how things can distort ideas and thoughts about what is and isn't normal and all those things. It fits alongside the stuff around relationship bullying and also domestic abuse, and it fits alongside sexual and criminal, but sexual exploitation, grooming. It fits in a lot across a lot of topics, but it's there. And, you know, we campaign really hard, youth workers and teachers, to get this curriculum. So let's try really hard and get it right. So just to put that into context for you a bit, I suppose what I'm saying here, there is absolutely no incentive for the porn industry to give up doing what it's doing. You know, it's globally, it's worth 96 billion a year, and that is massive. 28.5 billion visits to Pornhub every year. Now, there's lots of talk, again, that during lockdown and whilst children are off school, that access to pornography and porn consumption has rocketed. You know, people are, and some people would say, well, that's actually fair enough. If people can't go out and see people, you know, what are they supposed to be doing? And again, it depends where you sit on this whole spectrum of what you think's okay and what you don't. It fascinates me that there's 68 million internet searches for porn a day, but as of Friday, the top Google search, Instagram search was #love on Instagram. It wasn't porn. So that's quite interesting. So love topped porn for that day. It's 25% of all internet searches. What I would say is a lot of young people say, and I've seen it quoted, that porn just popped up on their computer. It just, you know, it wasn't there and then it was. And possibly that's, you know, possibly true. What I would say is that in 3 years of research, that never happened to me. until I started doing the research. And because now the searches that I put in, which were nothing to do with the actual content, I get offered so many penis extensions and Viagra and everything else every day, and Russian girls. And that is because of what I put into that search hub. So while young people say it pops up and it's such a big surprise, actually, if you haven't really searched for it, you're not likely to find things. And of course, the other thing that's important is that it's not just found online. For a lot of young people, where they're finding it, they're sharing on their phones. So it doesn't even touch, you know, these ideas, these notions we might have said to parents about, well, keep the main computer in the room where everybody else is and don't let them have access. They've got access all the time. So I suppose what I'm saying for me is we can't change what's already out there. It's out there. You know, the genie's out the bottle. And if you are 18 and over and it's legal porn you want to watch, there's nothing stopping you. You know, go ahead. What we need to talk about is maybe looking at values, attitudes, so that young people, you know, understand the choices they're making. And if they are looking at it, they understand what they're seeing and they can contextualize that between that and real life. Because the NSPCC, and again, these figures are 2016 figures because they haven't done it, it was over half had seen it, you know, between the ages of 11 and 14. For my own focus groups, I was finding far more young people in that lower end, sort of 10, 11, 12. Not unusual to be sort of calling Pornhub by name. And once they got a bit chatty, asking about specific films that were doing the rounds. You know, had I been told about this, had I been told about that? Many young people said, it is our sex education. We don't get decent sex education in school, and porn tells you the bits that you don't get to find out about any other way. So, as with anything, we have to go back to, you know, what are attitudes to porn? And it was kind of a question I started asking right at the start. You know, why do adults watch porn? Why do young people watch porn? Is it the same thing? And started testing some of those theories. And this is kind of information that I found, which I found was really interesting. You know, adults said, it's fun, it's a laugh. It's something you might do on your own, but you might do with a partner. 56% of UK adults say that they watch porn and 15% of them daily. Now, again, where's that in terms of what's good, what's bad? Is there a value judgment statement on that? I'm not sure. I am interested in the fact that a young woman complained on the bus because a man was sitting next to her on his iPad in a London bus going through the city in rush hour, on his iPad watching porn. And I thought that is really interesting, that that guy felt that he was doing nothing wrong. He felt comfortable enough to be sitting there on a crowded bus in rush hour watching pornography. And when she complained to the bus driver and then to the police, actually there was no real offence had been committed. She felt that it was, you know, it made her feel very uncomfortable and very awkward. That starts asking those questions, is that a problem? But when we look at what the difference between pornography and maybe some of those beautiful old masters of naked people is, you know, all the Rubens' big, very technically perfect drawings of women, in particular naked women, why isn't that porn? And why is Pornhub porn? Well, it's always been, one is for art, it's for beauty. The other one is supposed to do exactly what it says on the tin. As here, it says, it stimulates erotic feelings. It is there. That's the purpose of pornography. It's not about sex education. It's not about looking at the bodies and admiring them. It's actually to create erotic, to get an erotic response. Is that guy getting that when he's watching it on the bus, or has it become overconsumed? I don't know. Only he could probably answer us that. But it was definitely around stimulating erotic rather than emotional. It's guilt-free. You don't have to worry about your partner. You don't have to worry about somebody else having a good time. It's all about you. And it's easy. It is there whenever you want it. Asking young people, very different answers. So these are specific quotes, but they were the main ones, the main themes that came out. young women in particular said to learn how to have sex. I want to see what you're supposed to do. I want to see bodies, and I want to know what they're supposed to look like, and I want to know what you're supposed to look like when you do that. So it might have an erotic response, but that wasn't their first answer. Whereas some young men were much more honest. They just said, it's fun, I like it, I get off to it. What do you think I'll watch it for? You know, because my friends do, my boyfriend wants me to. It doesn't mean that girls don't like porn. And certainly if we have more time, we might look at ethical porn and feminist porn, and is there a difference? And, you know, depending on how far you're going with young people on this and their age, making sure it's age appropriate. Seemed to me the younger young people were, it was more about, it's really funny, it's giggly, it's, you know, it is titivating, but we want to see something that's funny, and we like seeing porn because it is. So I suppose the big questions, and this is when I'm going to ask Deborah to put you into your groups, just so you have an opportunity to speak. As I say, people have different views, and that is fine. Is there such a thing as overexposure? You know, can you be overexposed to sexualized images? Do you think that watching pornography can influence your expectations of what a real life relationship is going to be like? And do you think that comparisons with looking at porn and the porn effect, do you think it's going to have, it might be a positive or a negative, I don't know, but impact on what young people think is normal bodies? You know, our porn bodies, what do you think? Okay, you've only got 15 minutes. It's time to say hello to each other, and also to have a chat about this. I might pop in, but probably we won't have time. So thank you. Can you put me into groups? I'll see you in a minute on the other side. Oh, can you nominate one person to speak for each group as well, please? Okay, welcome back, everybody. I hope it was you had some useful conversations there. We ended up talking about exactly the same thing as well. And I think the more you talk about it, the more you start seeing different bits and pieces and thinking, wow, yeah, that impacts on that and that impacts on that. And we were talking about, I will mention it again, but just in case it doesn't get said, around female pleasure and where that sits within all this. You know, how young people are supposed to learn about that. Not just girls learning that they have a right to pleasure, but young men too knowing about that. You know, where does that sit within all of this? Okay, you can see who was in what group, so Deborah, so I can't see who was in which groups. We asked you to pull out sort of 3 key things that people were talking about, 3 points from each group. So do you want to call out a group, Deborah, or somebody that was in a group, then they can tell us who was their person? You're on, you need to unmute.
Dougie, yeah. Who was in your group? Are you a spokesperson or?
I didn't look at their names. Hang on, bear with me.
If anybody recognises Dougie and you were in your group and said, yeah, I'd speak.
Leslie
was.
I think it was me.
Oh, hi, Leslie. Well done.
There you go.
Hi.
Thanks, Doug.
Cool.
Yeah, I think we were looking at the 3 individual questions, but a lot of them tended to all kind of merge into the same one of the same issue, which is it encourage what normal. So for example, when young people are so used to seeing women in, a lot of it relates to social media and phones, and when they're seeing all the time topless women wearing not our clothes on Instagram, on Snapchat, on TV, that then becomes normal. So when like boyfriends ask them to send a topless picture or anything by phone, that seems normal to do. It also gives them, and young people seem to be getting what real life is from social media and from the phones. So
yeah.
What relationships are is what they see online. So boys, for example, and I know it works the other way as well, but boys, for example, who watch predominantly more porn, they see that as a relationship. So they expect when they date girls that the girlfriend behaves in that way, because that's what girlfriends do. So if the girls been watching it, they might agree, yeah, that's what girlfriends do, which is one thing. If they haven't been watching it but haven't had any sexual education, again, they don't know that that isn't normal. So the boys telling them it, so they think, yes, that's normal, that's what we do. And it affects the body image as well, because that's what they see, that's what they expect to be. Instagram is photoshopped within an inch of its life. I've got a 16-year-old, and trust me, Instagram is the bane of my life. what they look like, what the issues are, what they should be, how they should eat to look like that, relationships as well. But also the same with porn. I think the main thing we're looking at is it is setting a normal. It's setting this is what life is like, this is what real life is like, this is what people do, and they haven't got anything separate. And we're saying about the really good video was out recently, which it says it in a nutshell, is the New Zealand one.
Oh, yeah. Yes, I've been using that one. I was going to put it in today, but we haven't got quite enough time, so I chose another one.
It hits everything. It's not asking, it's assuming they're all 18 and they're not asking for consent. And it's so easy that for children just to tick a box, say, yes, I'm over 16, yes, I'm over 18, there's no checks done. And the more they access it, the more it then, like you were saying before, once you click on one thing, it pops up with different things.
Oh, it does, yeah.
Click on what they're getting and want, and it opens up.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good points, good points. And hopefully I'll pick up on these quickly, as we go through. I wish we could focus longer on it because, like you, one thing leads to another.
Yeah, it's all combined.
It's a fascinating topic.
Yeah.
Okay, Amy, who was in your group and who's speaking for you?
I know I didn't write any notes, but Helen, I think, have you written down some notes? I'm going to pass it over to Helen. She's...
Oh, okay, Helen, are you speaking? You need to put on your mic because you're on mute.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you both.
Very similar conversations really, about overexposure, I suppose. I think we were just sort of saying sometimes it depends on the maturity of the young person as how they're interpreting what they're seeing and everything else. And I think, sort of depending on their we were just saying about their brain development and everything else, what they see is normal. We were just saying that, there is a natural curiosity to look at things. And I think when things pop up sort of on your phone, on adverts, Netflix, whatever it may be, there's so many methods to looking at these things.
Yeah, I'm going to pick up on that in a minute, so hold that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think what we're just sort of saying, it's sort of the boundaries of where does it take people as well, for young people, it's just whatever you want, whatever flavour, whatever is your thing. And really just, a point I think Amy made really is sort of, the pornography that young people are seeing, there's never any conversation about consent, like, hang on a minute, let's have consent.
Yeah, hold on to that as well. Yeah.
Have you got a condom? Oh no, it's responsibility, all that sort of stuff isn't there. And I think it's all about, I think what we said a lot was that myth busting from what people look like, the body image, what sex is, it's not consensual, it's not, I think if people are learning how to do sex through porn, it's not good. And I think we
ought to have a conference. I think we need to have a porn conference.
We were talking about those.
Because it gets, there is so much to say on it, and I'm aware, we've got an hour and a half, so I'm not being but what we could do is actually get our youth workers to go back and work with young people to bring forward some of these issues as well. Because we need to be talking about it so that it becomes the norm to challenge and talk in the same way as it's quickly become the norm to look. But I take your point, and I'm going to come up on that as well, around, that actually people do find it interesting. Of course they do. Okay, anybody else got anything more to say? Because there were other groups, weren't there? Gary's just said something. What's Gary said? You may find the following very interesting. YouTube, A Call to Men, US Tony Porter. Yes, very good. A Call to Men, UK. Also links with masculinity, what it is to be a man. Yeah, and I'm going to look at that in a minute, or raise it, because I think very much so. And I've done quite a lot with young men around that as well, particularly young men with disabilities. How does that feel if this is what's being expected or what you're supposed to be doing, and that isn't ever going to be you, so links around what is a man, what is masculinity.
Well, we find also that links with pornography and objectification in media and stuff, how it can link to domestic violence and abuse. Yes. So it's really unpicking and pulling all that apart really, and to seeing where young males, young females sit within society and how they see themselves. But with our service in the Midlands has done a Call to Men, the UK training. It's very eye-opening and thought-provoking, really.
Definitely. I'd like to talk to you a bit more about that, because that does sound really good. So Justine said, or Justine, sorry, and I should know that I've got a sister, Justine. Does anyone watch 90 Day Fiancé? There was a man there who spoke about relationships and women's roles, touching on masculinity, femininity. But yeah, okay, I'm going to have to move on because it's 10 to 2, otherwise we're not going to get any further. But thank you. What I'd like you to do is to take these conversations back and to have them, not just with young people, but with your colleagues too, you know, to get this spoken about a bit more. Let me show you some of the stuff I've got here. So for me, this is, and some of you will have probably had this stuff as well, do a lot of activities with young people to look at maybe the parts of the body that it seems to be having the most impact in, and that's around size and shape of penises, and people getting very concerned and worried about if they're the right shape, the right size, body hair for both sides, for young women and young men. I've done a game which is like, got cards with different things on it, and they have to say whether they think it's something that impacts on young women more or young men, or whether it's exactly the same. And many things that, you know, even 10 years ago would have been very much a female or a male thing, actually they're all, everybody's worrying about it. The rise of the designer vagina, and you know, anybody who's looking for something that's quite good there, I really found The Wall of Vaginas. It's an art installation, and it's got hundreds. I don't know, I was slightly disappointed it was made by a man. I don't know why, but I just was a bit. But I do really like the installation because it really gets around that, you know, anything is normal. It's not just one size and shape, which is really great, because I think a lot of young women, probably the only place that they see another woman, they may not have seen their own vagina, or actually let's call it a vulva, may not have ever seen that, but the only ones that have ever seen are on porn, because unlike young men, so they don't see so much. This is what young men said, and young women. They said, I think young people expect sex to be like porn, and if it's not like that, then the sex isn't good. So it's almost this idea that you might have enjoyed it, but it isn't proper sex, or you didn't have good sex because it wasn't like that. A lot of young women, this is, as I say, once again, it's a comment from real young women, or men, names slightly changed. This stuff around fantasies, and a lot of the young women said, you can tell if a boy's watched a lot of porn, because what he thinks is normal. Talking about things being aggressive, a bit forceful, and that really links with what Gary was just saying as well. And one young man, you know, quite a few young men being really honest. If I'm honest, I prefer porn, because, you know, and there's that stuff about not having to think about a partner, you just get on with it, it's consumable, it's something you do. You don't have to service that relationship at all, because it isn't a relationship. You talked about this as well, Helen. Nothing in porn, there is the concerns that there is nothing shown about sexual health and about that contraception, and around, you know, having that conversation, the condom moment. Certainly talking to young people about that, they hadn't really thought about that at all. So, you know, if somebody's in the porn industry and they're a paid porn actor, the chances are they're going to have regular tests. They'll have a little piece of paper that says that they don't have an STI and that they can work, and they are insured against it. You know, if you're creating this at home, you're not doing any of that. There's none of those sort of safe checks that are done when somebody's had that kind of choice. Oh, hang on, porn is different. Just let me, this is a video that I use quite a lot with young people. I've used it with parents as well. It makes, for me, it makes the point without being anything I can't show them, but they always have a snigger and a giggle. So see what you think. There's lots of stuff out there, but I just particularly like this one.
From sex in real life. Let's find out how. Porn star penises are 6 to 9 inches. Civilian penis, 5 to 7. And while porn stars have very little hair down there, in real life, 65% of women and 85% of men do. Indeed, female porn privates tend to sport a similar look. But real-world vaginas come in all shapes, sizes, and colours. As for arousal, real people need 10 to 12 minutes to get going, while porn stars, male performers can hump for days, but in real life, 75% of men ejaculate within 3 minutes. And though porn starlets seem to always have an orgasm through penetration alone, 71% of women don't. Now, what about all the other stuff? Unlike porn stars, only 11.5% of women have had a same-sex experience, and only 40% of women have tried anal. Just 22% say they'll take a hot load in the face, and only 30% will actually swallow said load. The portion of women who've been in a threesome is less than 20%. And while the internet is awash in female squirters, only 6% of women say they regularly gush forth. Finally, what about light bondage? Well, only 40% have tried it. Wait, that's actually quite a lot. So there you go. That's the difference between porn sex and real sex. Feeling hungry?
So as I say, it's silly, it's food, it's quite fun, and it's accessible. So it gets young people thinking about those things before you can move on to talking about it a bit more. The issue of consent, and we could spend a long time looking at this, I think this is one of the main things with young people consuming a lot of porn, is that in real life, consent is the most important thing. I mean, if it's not consensual, it's not rape. Now, if it's not consensual, it's rape. There's nothing around this mutual pleasure and respect. And I think it's important that young people think of that. I also think that when we're talking about consent, they need to be able to think about that's consent to everything, not about expectations, to think about maybe where peer pressure is and all those things that are really important that you might not see in pornography, especially when it comes to looking at pornography that they put together themselves. So I suppose the conclusions that I came to is that, you know, we know that an interest in bodies and sex is perfectly normal for all young people, and from the ages of puberty onwards. And before that, you know, babies are interested. The first thing when a baby's nappy comes off, they're interested in those bits that you can't see or can't touch with the nappy on. It's just normal. But pornography, you know, all the research says it's not the best form of sex education for all those reasons we've just talked about. And there is clear evidence that it does distort views of what constitutes a normal, healthy relationship that's based on mutuality and respect and all those things. It can definitely impact on self-esteem and body image for all those reasons you mentioned and the other stuff we've talked about. And the research shows that risks are reduced if young people can talk openly about it. Certainly some of the complaints or the concerns for parents about putting this onto the national curriculum, onto any sort of relationships and sex education that we do, is that young people will want to go and watch it. We know that drug education works. You know, there is no evidence that suggests if you talk about sex, young people go off and do it more. I think that schools are going to need to do, certainly I've done a couple of local authorities, I've been asked to do parent workshops and workshops for foster carers as well around this, about their concerns for what their children are doing, but also, you know, trying to get them to have conversations and bring it up as well, so that they're getting mixed, you know, clear messages from home and at school as well around what's positive and what's not. I'm going to do a little quiz with you. If we think about it, one of the things that started me thinking about porn in the first place was the dichotomy between what children see. So on the one hand, children are watching from a very young age Disney films, which are all very chaste. The deal is sealed with a kiss. You know, you have one person that you search the world for, and when you've found this person, it is true love that lasts forever. And on the other hand, there are sexualized images all around children from a very young age. I was watching normal shopping centre. I'd finished training and I'd gone for a walk. It's 4 o'clock. on a normal weekday in a normal town centre, city centre, and there was a young mum with her pram. She was looking in the window of Anne Summers, and it was around the time of Valentine's Day and also around 50 Shades time. So there was handcuffs and, you know, fairy bits and pieces, and as the mum was looking in the window, and I looked down at the toddler in the pushchair was also looking in the window, and thought, I wonder what that child is internalising about, you know, what there is and what's there and what's not there. Is it, how does that fit between that, making sense of what you're seeing there, making sense of the Disney movies, and somewhere between all of that, as you grow up, there's real life, and then there's porn. And how do all those things fit together to even know what is a positive relationship from all those things that are flung at you? So then I started looking at things like just even the national newspapers. This picture, I find it hilarious. I mean, for a start, it's not the greatest of swimming costumes. And anybody who knows Towie, it's Bobby from Towie. And I just thought it was amusing. But that was in a national newspaper. Again, anybody can see that. Is that an appropriate picture for children to look at? I don't know. So let's have a look. If you've got your, I'm going to come out the screen so I can see people, because it's difficult to see you. And excellent, I can see people now. Okay, so if you, should we do this? I'll give you 6 questions, and then if people have got a bit of paper, they can write down what they think the answer is. It's just true or false. If you haven't got a bit of paper, don't worry. You know, there's not that many questions that you can't remember. So, true or false? Question 1. It is illegal for a 16-year-old female to pose for glamour pictures. So give me, actually we could do this now. So give me a thumbs up if you think that statement is true. I've got some of each there. It is true. It's true. It wasn't true. It's now illegal. You have to be over 18 to have glamour photos taken. But it certainly wasn't true. And if you want to watch something that I found quite interesting, which is on Channel 4 at the moment, and it is about Page 3, you know, the rise and fall of Page 3 girl. And so this is only 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, they were talking about the countdowns that were put on the national newspaper for 15-year-old girls who were going to hit 16. They had them in their school uniform, and the excitement that age 16, they were going to whip off their school uniform and show everybody what was underneath. Now, by today's standards, that sounds really, really bizarre. By then standards, it wasn't great. And I can remember campaigning, I don't know about you, Deborah, if you remember Claire Short, the MP who wants to ban Page 3. I'd almost forgotten her over time, but I don't know how. So it's interesting to watch how in a relatively short time, that has become the thought of a 15-year-old for the last 3 months that she's 15, being photographed in different states of undress until the day when she can bear all. Then you think back to all the scandals of 70s, 80s, 90s, older men and young girls, and you think, hang on a minute, if things were different, doesn't make them right. But
you just got to look at Britney Spears as well, haven't you? When Britney Spears came out for her first song and she was dressed as a
schoolgirl. Yeah, so how is that feeding into this? So, you know, it's interesting to look at, but now it is now illegal. You have to be over 18 to pose for glamour shots. Incidentally, when we're talking about inappropriate pictures, for girls, it's topless picture. For children girls under 18, it is considered inappropriate for a topless picture, but not for a young man. And again, you know, looking at that equality, is it okay for older women to be lusting after boy bands who are very young? You know, and I think it's worth having those conversations with young people as well. Okay, question 2, and we'll do it again. You can put true or false. the person making a sex tape, not the person appearing in it, has the copyright. So if I have a sex tape with one of you lot and I film it and it's got you in it, who owns it, you or me? Is it the person making the sex tape or the person who appears in it that owns it? So things like if you think the person making a sex tape, not the person appearing in it, has copyright. You're right. You're absolutely right. We've got mainly rights there. That's true. And I don't think young people know that that power goes in that way. The copyright, you have no say in it because it doesn't belong to you anymore. If I filmed it on my phone, it belongs to me. And the fact that it's your body and that you should have a right to what happens and who sees that, it's gone. Okay. It is illegal for a group of 18-year-olds to watch a porn movie in the privacy of their own home. True or false? Absolutely false. It is. The reason being that now they're trying to get all porn films, everything, to have an 18R on it, to say that it's restricted and that only 18s can watch it. However, as somebody has already pointed out, if you go to Pornhub, you only have to put in your age. And anybody who ever lied about their age at any time in their life knows that it's pretty easy. You don't even have to, you know, back in the day when I was sent up to the pub to buy the beers because I was tallest, I had to lie about my age. Now I don't even have to lie to somebody's face. You can do it online. So there is no kind of comeback, is there? It is. And of course, things like YouTube, they don't have an 18R on it. And that is somewhere where things can pop up. And I don't know any parents of young children here. So I was watching Peppa Pig. Well, I wasn't. I should have been watching the person that was watching Peppa Pig. And on YouTube, it's great because they often have an hour's worth of Peppa Pig. As it comes up, he suddenly says to me, "Oh, look at Georgie's willy." What? Have a look. Somebody has had a go at the old Peppa Pig video, and there is a version with an enormous penis on George. Is that illegal? Or those mangas where it's a very young child, a young childlike face. There's lots of those on YouTube, pornographic versions. Illegal or not, do we think? Yeah, Dougie's right, it's not illegal. No, it is illegal. Hang on, it is illegal. Yes, it's illegal because all child pornography is illegal, and we're going to look at the law in a second. But anybody who has been made to look like a child, clearly that does not include Barbara Windsor in Carry On, you know, whatever, dressed, obviously a 35-year-old dressed in school uniform. Or, you know, if I go into Ann Summers and buy myself a little school uniform, nobody's going to think I'm an under 18 performer. However, if you choose people because they look very young and then dress them to look younger, that is illegal. And it's also illegal for Peppa Pig, which is a baby pig, the mangas, which are all done as young children, to be seen doing that. Okay, an adult who shows a child a pornographic image is breaking the law. True or false? Absolutely true. Now, I have heard youth workers and I've heard teachers say, we need to be, you know, bringing these images, we need to be curating, we need to be showing children. We do not. We do not need to be ever showing children those things or young people those things. It is often seen as, or it's a form of grooming. Okay, and the last one, no, last two. So the law for LGBTQ and straight porn is different. True or false? It's false. It's false. Because what's the age of consent for anybody? 16. Age for watching porn? 18. And actually, but there is this old notion that somehow gay porn or lesbian porn is going to be more extreme. Some porn, my last question, is illegal for anyone to watch, regardless of age. True or false? some pornography is illegal at any age. Everybody who's got their thumb up, give yourselves a little pat on the back. You are absolutely right. And it's what's weird is you would never look for this act. The main acts that cover porn is the Criminal Justice and Immigration Act 2008. Who would be looking under that particularly? Makes it an offence to possess extreme pornographic images. That includes, so it includes bestiality, it includes children, extreme violence where somebody could be harmed or seems to have been harmed, dead people, all those things. I think it's we don't need to know all those laws, but it's good to know some. So I'm just going to go back to my screen a minute. And again, quizzes like this get young people talking, but it also gives you the opportunity to see how much they know. You know, it's a good way of getting base knowledge. So we all know age of consent is 16. It's illegal for anyone under 18 to buy or view porn. And it's illegal to take a sexually explicit picture and film anybody under 18. And as we probably all know, but young people never seem to get, that includes consenting under 18 couples and naked selfies. That even if you take it of yourself, and even if you never mean to show it to anybody else, it is still illegal. And it comes under child pornography offences. I mean, I've got a bit of a problem with the word child pornography, as have many people. It makes it sound like those children had a choice. It makes it sound like something they could freely, you know, sign up to. It kind of almost dignifies it. And it's not. It's child abuse is what it is. And Bernardo's in particular have done a lot of work on this. And also getting child sex workers, as they were being called. They're not. They are victims of adult abuse, is what they are. So anybody engaged and whatever, and that includes those. Graphic novels I've mentioned. Those are the manga style characters that I'm referring to. The idea is that they're looking very young, and it's about youth being venerated, childlike images, having sex, putting the two together, illegal. Peer-on-peer offences, it doesn't actually have to be having sex, it can be simulating sex, screen grabbing, sending those, getting stuff off of TikTok or Snapchat or wherever they are getting that content from and sharing it. Is also illegal. But we don't want to be criminalising children. And, you know, at one stage it seemed like so many young people were going to end up, you know, you could say threatening them with the police, that there is a new youth-produced sexual imagery. Most of you might know this, you might not. Outcome 21. You only get that the first time. So what seems to happen quite often is that a parent will see something on a phone, insist on seeing the pictures, call the school, rightly shocked, horrified, whatever else. The other parent or parents of those that are involved are all brought in and the police are called because the school has a duty to do that. If it is the first time and there is no evidence that there is any manipulation, it is, say, two 15-year-olds who see themselves in a relationship, well, they are in a relationship, and they both wanted to do it and they did it. You know, those probably aren't the same people that the laws around child pornography, child abuse are supposed to be there for. Outcome 21 would be considered, and they go down the educative route. So those young people, the police would talk to them. They would also expect schools to be involved, maybe a counsellor, maybe a youth worker, to work with those young people around what they've done and actually to think about those outcomes. However, if you do it again, it's a one chance only. You don't get to outcome 21 again. And it'd be interesting to see, because it's a fairly new thing, to see how that's evaluated by the police and whether it works, whether it doesn't, whether there needs to be, you know, how you prove there's no evidence of exploitation, because sometimes a young person could be saying they've signed up to it and they wanted to do it, and actually when you talk to them a bit more you realise that was because they felt they should, they didn't know it, you know, they felt it was part, whatever. So I think it's important to look at all round there. So I'm thinking of that. I want to move on to sexting, and somebody mentioned this because, of course, it's not just, we could all talk about the porn industry and it's certainly partly that, but actually a lot of the problem is around content being created by young people themselves. That's what the law defines it as. But I was interested in, why is it that we seem to have gone from quite a short space of time between, you know, think back to when you were young. If, say, you'd been at the seaside or you'd been in a pool and your swimming top had fell off, or you jumped in and your trunks had fallen down, probably you'd have been mortified then. You'd probably still be mortified now. And in 20 years' time, you'll still think about it. And your friends would think about it too, as, oh, do you remember when? So how comes when it's online, it's different? That you can be quite happy showing yourself. And so, has anybody watched Family Fortunes? I'm sure a lot of people have. So, as part of my research, I asked 100 young people from all over the country. I asked 100 young people, why would someone send a nude selfie? And I'm just going to come out again. I want a one-word answer. If I call on a couple of people. Amy, I asked 100 young people, and they were all 11 to 19, not all together, in different places. Amy, what do you think they said? Give me one thing you think they said.
It's usually because everyone else is doing it and they don't want to feel left out.
Okay, it was there, but it wasn't the top answer. John, what about you? Asked 100 young people, 100 young people said?
Peer pressure.
It was there, but it wasn't the top answer. Okay, let's have a look on the other screen. What about Daisy? Are you there? Daisy Chipperfield. Don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, because it's easy.
Yeah, it's easy. It was definitely there. Definitely easy. Danny Brown, what about you?
Gain attention of someone they like, try and get them to like them back.
Absolutely, definitely there. Not the top answer, though. What about Claire Williams? You there? Or Charlie August? So one more person. Oh, you're on mute, hun.
Sorry, I've got builders coming in and out. Basically, everyone said what I thought, really.
Oh, okay. Anybody else got one that they want to say? Stephanie Campbell, what about you?
About because they didn't want to say no.
Okay, Kelly, yeah, it's there, definitely.
Yeah. What about to get...
They didn't want to be called frigid.
Yeah, that's probably there. That's probably definitely there. Okay, let me show you what they said. Because I mean, and I think this is a great thing to ask young people, actually. Obviously, I always ask them other young people, not about what they've done. And so I asked 100 young people, and they could give me 2 things that they thought. The top answer, because it's normal, because it's what you do as part of a romantic or sexual relationship. It's really can't see why adults have a problem with this. I had young people saying to me, I would have thought you'd be pleased because you're always banging on about safer sex. And nothing could be safer. I send the picture, they send the picture. I do me, they do their, they do them. We don't even touch each other. How could it be safer? It's really difficult. If that's what young people are really thinking, that it is just a normal part, that a lot of the work we've been doing around, it must be peer pressure was there because everybody does it. That stuff around to feel good about yourself. And this was particularly young women saying, I look great. I'm never going to look this good again. I look great. I want to show people how good I look. I want to get good comments back. And I'm saying, well, what about if some dirty old man sees it? What are you going to do then? Well, they're lucky, aren't they? I look great. Oh. Flirting. I fancy you. I'm showing you that I fancy you. I miss you. I'm showing you because I want to be with you. And a lot of young people said to get an image back. I want you. I fancy you. I'm showing you what I've got and I want to see you. It's so we can share. It's our starting point. So when we're thinking about, how we're going to work with young people on this, some of the traditional ideas we had about it maybe need to change. Obviously, this needs to be looked at. This is a sample of 100 young people. Across the whole of young people in the UK, it's not the biggest sample. It wasn't the answers I expected to get necessarily. I thought it would be different. Younger they were, the more it was around fun, it's a laugh, you know, it's a joke to do it. So if that's what they're doing and why they're doing it, when we look at this, 64% the NSPCC and Childline say have been asked to send an intimate image or film. I think this might be higher now. You know, usually when we get the research out, it's a good year or so since it's been done. 89% would consider sending images or films or intend to do it again. It's back to this idea about it being absolutely normal. It's a normal part of what you do. Who's doing it? A lot of parents are very worried. It can be part of grooming, and that does happen, definitely. But the main, from Bernardo's and Childline, the primary risk is from peers. It's not from strangers. It can become really coercive. And obviously, and I think this is kind of what other people have touched on, it can reveal other sexual bullying. And it is the downside, of course, for young people we need to be talking about. When we look at vulnerable young people, like a lot of youth workers, young people I've always worked with have always been seen to be those most at risk. Done a lot of work with young offenders. So, you know, most at risk of offending or most deprived areas, whatever. So it can be about that, feeling that need to conform. And that's something that one of you brought up just earlier around it's the fact that you want to conform that takes you to that unsafe situation where risk taking happens, that you maybe if you thought about it a bit more you wouldn't, or if you don't feel very great about yourself and you want the attention. But of course it can be part of grooming for child sexual exploitation, and certainly it's important that that's not discounted, even though it seems to be mainly peers that are doing that to each other. This is nothing new, you know, the potential consequences. But again, I think it's important why we need to be telling young people who has ownership of those pictures. You have ownership. More you're telling me that you're sending these photos because you're proud of your body and you want to show people it. Once you've taken, and that's empowering for you, that power you give to somebody else by giving those photos. You know, so maybe looking at other ways you can be empowered to feel good about yourself without necessarily putting yourself at risk through those ways. Who's responsible? This is what I often ask young people. When it comes to porn and sexting and everything else, who do they think should be responsible for keeping them safe? Who should be responsible? You know, should it be down to the government to decide what we can see and what we can't see online? What porn we can see and what we can't see? Whether you're over 18 or not, do we think that's a great thing? And they said, well, yes, the government has to protect you. And they said, well, who in the government would you trust to decide? Who do you think is the person to decide what you should see and shouldn't see? Because actually it's got to be, we've got to get young people to a point where they use self-censorship about what's appropriate, what's not appropriate to see. Or maybe it's your parents. Well, parents don't want you looking at that. Media, what is it? It's very difficult. You know, we used to say to young people, well, you know that employers look at your stuff and, you know, if you have naked pictures out there of you and you've got films of you engaging in porn with your, you know, your boyfriend or girlfriend online, what are employers going to think? It will ruin your career prospects. And, you know, I've had young women turn around and say to me, what, like it did Kim Kardashian's? Yeah, sort of not really like that, no. Because it didn't harm. We can't use those, I don't think, black and white kind of, this will happen, because that isn't the case. For some people, they haven't done that badly out of having a sex tape come out. Other people, it's really spoilt their life. So, you know, it's thinking, getting people talking, getting people thinking about how can I get that buzz? How can I feel good about myself without doing that? Obviously, if you know young people are creating porn, homemade porn seems to be a really big thing. And there are two arguments. One is that it is a kickback against that perfect body image and, you know, the perfect body. And that's why people like watching it, because homemade porn or live streaming, webcamming, live streaming tends to be real people. And that is healthier for people to watch than bodies with unrealistic shapes and sizes they can never achieve. Is one discussion to have. Is that true? Not if they're underage. You know, if you're worried about it, obviously it needs to go there. So I'm pointing at my screen, forgetting you can't see. So CEOP, if you haven't looked on the National Crime Agency Command, CEOP website yet, I would suggest you do. It has some really good videos. It has a whole page for like parents and carers. It has one for teachers and youth workers would come under that too, and for young people. It's got resources. It is also the place to report things, but they're doing a lot of awareness raising and getting young people to think about what they're doing. I mean, for me, we've scratched the surface here. I've raised a load of issues. I've made sure you know the laws, and we've had to think about quite a few things. But it opens more cans of worms than it closes down. I think we need to be talking about this with young people and about the impact of porn, getting them to think about when they're age 14 and absolutely desperate to have every wisp of hair whisked off their body. Where does that come from? Well, it comes from the porn industry. No, it's about getting a better cum shot. Is that really what we want for our girls and our young men to be feeding into? How can we have those conversations so that young people feel confident about their bodies and that they make decisions that are good for them, that they reclaim their right to pleasure within sex rather than it has to be like porn? And it's not just about pornography, but that is a large part of the conversation. And if you feel good about yourself and confident, and you respect yourself and you respect other people, you're just more likely to make better choices because you're less likely to let yourself come to harm. And I think it's important. I think youth work can really contribute to this. Schools are supposed to be doing it, and I've showed you what they're supposed to be covering. Will they all get to do it? Well, a lot of the feedback is that teachers are saying, we're not even trained in relationship education. Whilst I might be happy doing the birds and the bees talk, just about, whilst I'll do the puberty talk, just about, I don't want to be talking about this. I don't know enough. I don't know what to say. And I think youth workers, we can do far more stuff around it, getting it out there and spoken about and talked to, encouraging young people through quizzes and activities and games and things that they can use that I think will make a real difference to them. Additional resources. If you haven't already signed up to the podcast, The Sex Ed Diaries, it's done by Brooke. And it is a new project for Brooke. It is free. You can get the podcast from iTunes or your own podcast provider. I have to say that bit. It talks about everything, the entire new curriculum. It talks about sexual health. It talks about inclusive sex and relationships. It talks about making sure we include trans young people and how we get that going. And it also talks about pornography, episode 3. And you can hear my dulcet tones again as we talk porn for an afternoon. I think that she's done a really good job with this. It's for teachers, it's for youth workers, it's for anybody supporting young people. And it's free. NYA has got stuff. Have a look on their website on the youthworksupport.com. The book that I was talking about, that we need to talk about pornography, that's there. There's also freebies off of my website that's around pornography. There is stuff out there to support you having these conversations. If people have spoken to people who are getting involved with it already, I know Gary pointed us to some resources as well. If there's some there, can we put them into, you know, you put them, Deborah, onto YouTube. I can see people have put in some suggestions for some really good, you know, places that they can look, or films that have been done, or research projects, whatever. Can we put those in so that people can see those as well, can follow them up?
Yeah, I can ask our IT team if they can add that in somehow. So yeah,
I think it'd be useful because there's been quite a lot of sharing going on. Okay, I'm going to bring you back because I'm aware of the time. And we're coming towards, I'm just about bringing it in on time. We're just over. So, anybody got anything they'd like to, real burning things they want to say? or they want to mention, or something they want to share. Yeah, Gary's put it on there, the TED Talks. Thanks, Gary. I wanted that. And we've got all sorts put on there. So if we can get that put in the bottom, and Leslie's put some things on there as well, I think it'll be really useful. It's a really short, quick whiz through. Hopefully it's raised some thoughts. You know, we can do this. Youth workers, we are well placed to do this work.
Yeah.
Go out, enjoy it, have fun. And thanks very much. It's been lovely seeing you all again. Lovely to meet you people. Lovely to see some of you again. I'll see you again. Take care. Bye. Have a good day. Let's hope the weather improves.
Fingers crossed.
Leslie, thanks for that.
Thanks, guys. And just to say, if you wouldn't mind completing that survey that we've just put up, that would be great for us as NYA, because obviously Zoom's something new to everybody. Just an answer to the question, the PowerPoint isn't available, but the YouTube will obviously be there. So obviously you'll be able to see the PowerPoint, but we don't actually send out the PowerPoints. And I will get to see if the guys can add something. So we have got all of that really good stuff from the group chat. So it's been really good. And thank you, Vanessa. That's been really,
you're welcome.
really
and anybody wants
interesting.
to do porn work, this is my big thing at the moment. Get in touch. Just follow me on Twitter. So I've got an idea, or have you got something that I can work on? I'm working with a group and I want to do this. If I've got it, I'm not precious. I'll share it with you.
No, that's great. Thank you ever so much for that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Nice to see you.